All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. We are the MSBA-BA Capstone team that had the opportunity to work with HP this year. We are super excited to be here today to present our final project, the integration of services into the total addressable market. Before we begin, we really quickly just want to take an opportunity to introduce ourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Turner Bass. I'm originally from Whittemore, North Carolina. On graduation, I'll be moving to Houston to work with HP in business planning and strategy.
Hi, I'm Daniel Collega. I'm from Woodbridge, Virginia. Upon graduation, I'm planning on finding a consultant.
My name is Biharaj. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, and after graduation, I'll be returning back to the Northern Virginia area to work in government contracting with BMNT.
Mehdi Yozik, I'm from Vernon, Virginia. Upon graduation, I'll also be returning to Northern Virginia area to work government contract and advisory for Cone Resnick.
And I'm Sean Raines. I'm originally from Beckley, West Virginia. Upon graduation, I'm going to get to stay at Virginia Tech as a professor of practice and with this program.
We'd also like to extend a huge thank you to our faculty advisor, Dr. Oni Surratt, who was instrumental in helping us break down the model in the early stage of our project, as well as just steering us in the right direction when we were brainstorming ideas for our final solution. Really quickly, I'm just going to run through an agenda to provide more context into how our presentation today is going to look. We're going to start with the project overview and objectives section, which can provide more background information into what our problem looks like. Then we'll move into the data analysis process findings, which will cover the methods that we use and the conclusions we're able to draw. And we'll cover the economic impact of our proposed solution. And finally, we'll finish up with recommendations, plans of future action, and a few comments policy. So HP currently utilizes the TAM model to make high-level strategic decisions. And essentially, the TAM model pulls multiple different input values together to calculate an estimation for total revenue at the individual account level. And as we've been progressing through this project and having conversations with our team, as well as doing our own research, we've come to realize that the industry that HP exists in is experiencing a change. Things are shifting away from the traditional one-and-done transactional model and more towards a contractual one, which prioritizes building long-term relationships with your clients. HP absolutely does this, especially utilizing their service and solutions offerings, but the current TAM model does not have a way to specifically account for how these offerings impact those total revenue estimations. So this brings us to our team's big challenge this year, which is how can we better capture how services and solutions are impacting those revenue estimations to ensure the model continues to perform as accurately and efficiently as it has in the past. And most importantly, it continues to empower decision makers with high quality data that they can utilize with every decision they're making every single day. So using all this information, we were able to develop a final problem statement that has led us to the entirety of this project. And I'm going to pass it to Dan.
Thanks, Pete. So after reviewing our project description and after multiple discussions with the HP, problem statement we've come up with for our project is how HP is currently in need of a clear and scalable method for understanding how expansible the services and solutions that access TAM institutions. This ultimately affects HP's ability to assess its market potential and develop long-term growth strategies for its products and services. After figuring out our problem statement, we needed to come up with objectives we needed to hit to successfully complete this project. The first major objective was to develop a full understanding of the TAM model. The second major objective was to find an area of improvement in the model for us to focus all of our attention on. The third major objective was to design a services extension within the model to help those TAM estimations be close to accurate. And finally, the fourth major objective was to design a future playbook incorporating our thought processes for future involvement. And I'll pass it on to Eddie to go on to the data analysis portion of the project.
Thanks, Daniel. So after our team decided to focus on the integration of services into HP's existing model, we wanted to further narrow down our scope to give ourselves an achievable deliverable given our time frame. We decided it was best to focus on one sector and one service branch to achieve this. First, narrowed down to a specific sector of HP's business. HP has four main business sectors. These include SMB, which stands for small and medium businesses, commercial, enterprise, and public sectors. We narrowed down to the enterprise sector for the focus of our analysis as it had the most amount of data available for our testing. We next narrowed down to a service branch. HP has four main service categories. These include digital, lifecycle, manage, and renew. We focus solely on lifecycle services as it not only makes up the majority of HP's service market, but it also had the clearest and most well-defined data available. Thus, our final project became to develop a total addressable market extension specifically for enterprise lifecycle services. Once our scope was finalized, it was time for our team to estimate the total addressable market within lifecycle services. To do this, we followed the same methodology HP uses to estimate their hardware TAM. This required us to create conversion rates, also known as weights for lifecycle services. Before we could do this, 3 key pieces of information were needed from HP's team. First, we needed to understand what lifecycle services was made up of, as each component has a different attach rate. We discovered that lifecycle services is made up of 2 main products. Next, we acquired historical sales data from fiscal years 2020 to 2024 to measure company level purchasing patterns. And lastly, we gathered average selling prices, also known as ASPs, for both products and lifecycle services. Now that we have this data, we can move into our model steps, which I'll pass to Turner.
Thanks, Elliot. When beginning our model, the team felt the best way for us to be the most accurate would be to break it down into 4 actionable steps. Now, the first of these 4 steps was to calculate individual company conversion rates. Now, what does this really mean? These conversion rates are essentially how often salespeople are pushing these companies that already have a designated hardware user base to also be HP service users as well. The second step in this process is to sort by vertical and account for outliers. Sorting by vertical is fairly simple. We use the verticals that were already assigned to these companies in HP's hardware model. And when accounting for outliers, we chose to use the Windsor method. This allowed us to calculate the 95th and the 5th percentile in every single vertical, and then adjust any values above the 95th or below the 5th percentiles back to the numbers. Third step in this process, and arguably the most important for us, was to create the reference table. This reference table may not be the most difficult, but it's most important because it houses all those average conversion rates to then import them into the model to calculate every company's service TAM. And finally, we need to create a market custom. This is very important because our model, as Eddie said earlier, was on 4 years of sales data. We needed to annualize this to make it easier for decision makers to use, as well as account for variable purchasing and refresh cycles. Now I'm going to pass it to Sean to talk about recommendations and future actions.
Thanks, Turner. So now we know how we got here. We're going to talk a little bit about what it meant for HP. When we implemented this into their existing model, we saw an increase of 3.96%. But what did that increase really represent? It represents a sense of clarity. That clarity can be viewed through 2 lenses. The first lens is understanding mechanics, mechanisms within their services business. Also understanding how that services business impacts their corporate business. This will provide great value to HP as they move forward, and the model is designed to evolve as the business evolves. So we do recommend, we did HP, that they extend this model to the rest of their business. To do that, executing that plan using our playbook. This playbook will have detailed and summary content tips that we learned along the way. It will encourage continuity and engagement throughout HP, but also within Virginia Tech and the future cohorts. And will facilitate a knowledge transfer so that those teams can hit the ground running and build on the great work that we did alongside HP. Now let's talk a little bit about what we liked about this program. For us, the most impactful part of this program was being able to work together, to work with our fellow classmates, whether that was coursework, group projects, capstone teams, maybe having some fun on the weekends. It was a great experience. It taught us a lot. Our advice is to stay open to the experience, whether that's in the classroom, in teamwork. Stay open to what you learn in those classrooms, not only about yourself, but about others' business.
That concludes our presentation today. Before we open the floor for questions, we'd like to extend one more big thank you to our team at HP, specifically Tom, Drew, Bisha, and Laura. They were meeting with us every single week and helped us with every little piece of data and information we needed, and we truly could not have gotten anywhere without them. So thank you to you all, and thank you to the audience for being here as well. With that, we'd love to answer any questions that you all might have.
That being global is
Yeah, so when building this model, we really focused, we were in the North America region mainly, but we built it with the expansion plan of being able to go out and advance that into more partnerships, and especially to their Latin American business, their Europe business, and especially with the different countries having different partnerships with smaller businesses or even competitors. We have that focus to where we can expand this whole model into that model eventually.
You mentioned expanding the model to other sectors. What would be your first recommendation?
Yeah, I can take that. So we focus on the enterprise, and we think the best thing that HP should do is to move through the service branch first. So not just cover digital, but also, not just cover lifecycle, but also digital, manage and renew, build the entire enterprise service staff up, and then they can shift to a commercial sector, because the enterprise and commercial sectors are fairly similar in accounts and company sizes. So I think that'd be the best approach.